Okay, everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we are playing a game called Dagon. I do believe it's how it would be pronounced. It's a Cthulhian story. The original story, the book, was written by H.P. Lovecraft, but someone went ahead and interpreted it into a video game. So, we're going to play a H.P. Lovecraft story. So, this is going to be interesting. Alrighty, let's go. Dagon is a faithful interactive adaptation of H.P. Lovecraft's work, focused on the story and the atmosphere. So that's going to be the theme of this game. You will not find difficult choices, actions, sequences, or inventory management here, and movement is limited to progressing through locations along the plot. Okay, so it's an interactive story.
I am writing this under an appreciable mental strain, since by tonight I shall be no more.
Oh. That's deep. Okay. During the game, you will encounter interactive elements. Some of them will allow you to continue your journey. Others reveal interesting facts about the original short story, its historical background, and the author. Okay, some of the trivia is hidden. In order to find these secrets, focus your eyes and look for the Elden sign. Oh, okay, so, okay.
Penniless, and at the end of my supply of the drug which alone makes life endurable, I can bear the torture no longer, and shall cast myself from this garret window into the squalid street below.
Garret window. That's a word I've never even heard used in a sentence before.
Do not think from my slavery to morphine that I am a weakling or a degenerate. When you have read these hastily scrawled pages, you may guess, though never fully realize, why it is that I must have forgetfulness or death.
Oh, morphine. Morphine entered into the U.S. in the 19th century and was routinely administered to treat severe pain during the American Civil War, during 1961 through 1965, 1861 through 1865, and World War I, 1914 to 1918. Really, World War I was only 4 years? I thought it was longer. It was also sold without restriction until 1914. Morphine became more popular after the invention of the hypodermic syringe around 1854. Friedrich Serturner, who first isolated the substance, originally named it morphium after Morpheus, the Greek god associated with dreams. In a time when Dagon was published, morphine abuse, known as soldier's disease, already posed a big problem in the United States. Okay, I actually found that interesting. I did not know that.
It was in one of the most open and least frequented parts of the broad Pacific that the packet of which I was supercargo fell a victim to the German sea raider.
Okay, yeah, we're at sea. Can I move now? Lovecraft and the Great War. Dagon was written around the month after the United States entered World War I. Lovecraft was actively interested in its course. He composed many poems in which he gave encouragement to soldiers and commented, I can't speak, on the events unfolding in Europe. He tried to enlist in the army, which he mentions in one of the letters to Reinhard Kleiner. Some time ago, impressed by my entire uselessness in the world, I resolved to attempt enlistment despite my almost invalid condition. I argued that if I chose a regiment soon to depart for France, my sheer nervous force, which is not inconsiderable, might sustain me till a bullet or a piece of shrapnel could more conclusively and effectively dispose of me. Letter to Reinhard H.P. Lovecraft. But even though he passed a physical exam, his mother prevented him from going to war. She has threatened to go to any lengths, legal or otherwise, if I do not reveal all the ills which unfit me. Okay, basically, she threatened any means necessary unless he tells them what physical ailments he has. That's basically what happened. Okay. Let's continue, I guess.
The Great War was then at its very beginning, and the ocean forces of the Hun had not completely sunk to their later degradation.
What did you say? The Great War was then at its very beginning of the later degradation. Okay.
So that our vessel was made a legitimate prize, whilst we of her crew were treated with all the fairness and consideration due us as naval prisoners.
I don't know that flag. Yes, what is this? The Huns. The Huns were Central Asian nomads who established a dominion in Europe and invaded the Roman Empire in the 5th century AD. They were known as brutal, deadly warriors and masters of quick raids who also developed powerful composite bows, lassos, and early siege weapons. During World War I, the British used the word Huns as a synonym for Germans in order to emphasize their brutality. However, the term originated when the German Emperor Wilhelm II gave a speech to his troops on the 27th of July in year 1900 before they embarked to China. Should you encounter the enemy, he will be defeated. No quarter will be given, prisoners will not be taken. Whoever falls into your hands is forfeited. Just as 1,000 years ago the Huns under their king Attila made a name for themselves. One that even today makes them seem mighty in history, a legend. May the name German be affirmed by you in such a way in China that no Chinese will ever again dare to look cross-eyed at a German. The refusal to take prisoners was a clear breach of the laws and customs of war adopted during the first Hague Convention of 1899. Okay. Not okay, but okay.
So liberal, indeed, was the discipline of our captors, that 5 days after we were taken, I managed to escape alone in a small boat with water and provisions for a good length of time. When I finally found myself adrift and free, I had but little idea of my surroundings.
Yeah, I say you're in the middle of the frickin' ocean.
Never a competent navigator, I could only guess vaguely by the sun and stars that I was somewhat south of the equator. Of the longitude, I knew nothing, and no island or coastline was in sight.
Okay. That makes it continue. I don't see any... Okay.
The weather kept fair, and for uncounted days I drifted aimlessly beneath the scorching sun, waiting either for some passing ship or to be cast on the shores of some habitable land.
The Return to Short Stories. Dagon was written in July 1917 and first published in 1999 in The Vagrant, an amateur magazine focused on the supernatural. The story is the first of his stories that introduced an element from the Cthulhu mythos. Dagon himself, a pagan cult-worshipping Dagon, later appears in The Shadow over Innsmouth, one of Lovecraft's most popular works. 1917 is also the year when he wrote The Tomb, a story about Gervas Dudley, a daydreamer who discovers a mysterious mausoleum in the woods of his house and began obsessed with it. The two works marked Lovecraft's return to short story writing after he burned most of his attempts at the genre 9 years prior and decided to concentrate on poetry. Lovecraft stated that it was his friend William Paul Cook, a literary publisher and critic, who convinced him to start writing weird fiction again. So he had a friend who pushed him. That's good. We all need that type of
But
friend.
neither ship nor land appeared, and I began to despair in my solitude upon the heaving vastness of unbroken blue.
Son.
The change happened whilst I slept.
The change?
Its details I shall never know. For my slumber, though troubled and dream-infested, was continuous.
Dude. Whoa. Hi. Okay.
When at last I awoke, it was to discover myself half sucked into a slimy expanse of hellish black mire, which extended about me in monotonous undulations as far as I could see, and in which my boat lay grounded some distance away. Though one might well imagine that my first sensation would be of wonder at so prodigious and unexpected a transformation of scenery, I was in reality more horrified than astonished. For there was in the air and in the rotting soil a sinister quality which chilled me to the very core.
Yeah. I can see that.
The region was putrid with the carcasses of decaying fish and of other, less describable things which I saw protruding from the nasty mud of the unending plain. Perhaps I should not hope to convey in mere words the unutterable hideousness that can dwell in absolute silence and barren immensity. There was nothing within hearing and nothing in sight save a vast reach of black slime. Yet the very completeness of the stillness and the homogeneity of the landscape oppressed me with a nauseating fear. The sun was blazing down from a sky which seemed to me almost black in its cloudless cruelty, as though reflecting the inky marsh beneath my feet.
Huh. The origins of Dagon. Dagon seems to be inspired by Fishhead, a short novel by Ivan S. Schaub about unnatural affinities between a hybrid idiot and the strange fish of an island lake. Supernatural horror in the literature, H.P. Lovecraft, and Lovecraft's dream about a strange island emerging from the ocean and him crawling in the ooze that covered its surface. I dreamed that whole hideous crawl and can yet feel the ooze sucking me down. In defense of Dagon, H.P. Lovecraft. Lovecraft's interest in the topic stemmed from his aversion to fish and sea smells, in his own words. I have hated fish and feared the sea and everything connected with it since I was 2 years old, but I cannot recall what early experience gave me such a profound and lasting aversion to the sea and seafood. The Dweller in Darkness, Lovecraft, 1927, Donald Wandre. Okay, oh boy.
As I crawled into the stranded boat, I realized that only one theory could explain my position. Through some unprecedented volcanic upheaval, a portion of the ocean floor must have been thrown to the surface, exposing regions for which innumerable millions of years had lain hidden under unfathomable watery depths. So great was the extent of the new land which had risen beneath me that I could not detect the faintest noise of the surging ocean, straining my ears as I might.
Oh, that's a fairly good assumption. What is that? You see that? Me, who is editing this. Place an arrow pointing in the thing that I'm pointing at now, even though it's kind of obvious. Thank you.
Nor were there any seafowl to prey upon the dead things.
The mystery of volcanic islands. Volcanic eruptions sometimes result in the creation of islands. Most of them are transient and erode after some time, but some prove permanent. The floating pumic porous rock created when superheated pressured rocks is ejected from a volcano can move across long distances and transport barnacles and macroalgae that cling to it. In 2001, rafts of pumice created during the eruption of a volcano near Tonga in the peninsula eventually reached Australia.
For several hours I sat thinking or brooding in the boat, which lay upon its side and afforded a slight shade as the sun moved across the heavens. As the day progressed, the ground lost some of its stickiness and seemed likely to dry sufficiently for traveling purposes in a short time.
Oh, well, that's good. Bright side, right?
That night I slept but little, and the next day I made for myself a pack containing food and water, preparatory to an overland journey in search of the vanished sea and possible rescue.
Okay, that still moving kind of creeps me out.
On the third morning, I found the soil dry enough to walk upon with ease. The odor of the fish was maddening, but I was too much concerned with graver things to mind so slight an evil, and set out boldly for an unknown goal.
Nothing. Okay. Yeah, squelchy.
All day I forged steadily westward, guided by a faraway hummock which rose higher than any other elevation on the rolling desert.
What are those things? Those aren't any sea creatures I know. Whoa.
That night, I encamped, and on the following day still travelled toward the hummock, though that object seemed scarcely nearer than when I had first espied it. By the fourth evening, I attained the base of the mound, which turned out to be much higher than it had appeared from a distance. An intervening valley setting it out in sharper relief from the general surface. Too weary to ascend, I slept in the shadow of the hill. I know not why my dreams were so wild that night, but ere the waning and fantastically gibbous moon had risen far above the eastern plain, I was awake in a cold perspiration, determined to sleep no more. Such visions as I had experienced were too much for me to endure again. And in the glow of the moon I saw how unwise I had been to travel by day. Without the glare of the parching sun, my journey would have cost me less energy.
Yeah, no.
Indeed, I now felt quite able to perform the ascent which had deterred me at sunset. Picking up my pack, I started for the crest of the eminence.
Okay.
I have said that the unbroken monotony of the rolling plain was a source of vague horror to me. But I think my horror was greater when I gained the summit of the mound and looked down the other side into an immeasurable pit or canyon, whose black recesses the moon had not yet soared high enough to illumine. I felt myself on the edge of the world.
I would like to look down.
Peering over the rim into a fathomless chaos of eternal night. Through my terror ran curious reminiscences of Paradise Lost, and of Satan's hideous climb through the unfashioned realms of darkness. As the moon climbed higher in the sky, I began to see that the slopes of the valley were not quite so perpendicular as I had imagined. ledges and outcroppings of rock afforded fairly easy footholds for a descent. Whilst after a drop of only a few hundred feet, the declivity became very gradual. Urged on by an impulse which I cannot definitely analyze, I scrambled with difficulty down the rocks and stood on the gentler slope beneath.
Dude, where are we?
Gazing into the Stygian deeps, where no light had yet penetrated.
Oh.
All at once, my attention was captured by a vast and singular object on the opposite slope, which rose steeply about 100 yards ahead of me. An object that gleamed whitely in the newly bestowed rays of the ascending moon. That it was merely a gigantic piece of stone, I soon assured myself. But I was conscious of a distinct impression that its contour and position were not altogether the work of nature. A closer scrutiny filled me with sensations I cannot express. For despite its enormous magnitude and its position in an abyss which had yawned at the bottom of the sea since the world was young, I perceived beyond a doubt that the strange object was a well-shaped monolith, whose massive bulk had known the workmanship and perhaps the worship of living and thinking creatures. Dazed and frightened, yet not without a certain thrill of the scientist's or archaeologist's delight, I examined my surroundings more closely.
Zoom. Examining.
The moon, now near the zenith, shone weirdly and vividly above the towering steeps that hemmed in the chasm. Across the chasm, the wavelets washed the base of the Cyclopean monolith, on whose surface I could now trace both inscriptions and crude sculptures. The writing was in a system of hieroglyphics unknown to me and unlike anything I had ever seen in books, consisting for the most part of conventionalized aquatic symbols such as fishes, eels, octopi, crustaceans, mollusks, whales, and the like. Several characters obviously represented marine things which are unknown to the modern world, but whose decomposing forms I had observed on the ocean-risen plain. It was the pictorial carving, however, that did most to hold me spellbound.
Dragon contains many themes and storytelling methods that Lovecraft developed in his late works, such as those four.
Plainly visible across the intervening water on account of their enormous size were an array of bas-reliefs whose subjects would have excited the envy of a Doré. I think that these things were supposed to depict men, at least a certain sort of men.
Mermen?
Though the creatures were shown disporting like fishes in the waters of some marine grotto, or paying homage at some monolithic shrine which appeared to be under the waves as well. Of their faces and forms I dare not speak in detail, for the mere remembrance makes me grow faint. Grotesque beyond the imagination of a Poe or a Bulwer. They were damnably human in general outline, despite webbed hands and feet, shockingly wide and flabby lips, glassy, bulging eyes, and other features less pleasant to recall. Curiously enough, they seem to have been chiseled badly out of proportion with their scenic background. For one of the creatures was shown in the act of killing a whale, represented as but little larger than himself. I remarked, as I say, their grotesqueness and strange size, but in a moment decided that they were merely the imaginary gods of some primitive fishing or seafaring tribe. Some tribe whose last descendant had perished eras before the first ancestor of the Piltdown or Neanderthal man was born. Awestruck at this unexpected glimpse into a past beyond the conception of the most daring anthropologist, I stood musing whilst the moon cast queer reflections on the silent channel before me. Then, suddenly, I saw it.
So what?
With only a slight churning to mark its rise to the surface, the thing slid into view above the dark waters. Loathsome, it darted like a stupendous monster of nightmares to the monolith, about which it flung its gigantic scaly arms, the while it bowed its hideous head and gave vent to certain measured sounds. I think I went mad then. Of my frantic ascent of the slope and cliff, and of my delirious journey back to the stranded boat, I remember little. I believe I sang a great deal and laughed oddly when I was unable to sing. Indistinct recollections of a great storm sometime after I reached the boat. At any rate, I know that I heard pearls of thunder and other tones which nature utters only in her wildest moods. When I came out of the shadows, I was in a San Francisco hospital. Brought thither by the captain of the American ship which had picked up my boat in mid-ocean. In my delirium, I had said much, but found that my words had been given scant attention. Of any land upheaval in the Pacific, my rescuers knew nothing. Nor did I deem it necessary to insist upon a thing which I knew they could not believe.
Lovecraft was a prominent figure in the world of amateur journalism in 1915. I'm going to read this in my head because it'll be a lot more faster. You all can read along if you want, or skip it if you like. Interesting.
Once I sought out a celebrated ethnologist and amused him with peculiar questions regarding the ancient Philistine legend of Dagon, the fish god.
Dagon, or Dagon, was the main deity of the Philistines, worshipped throughout the Middle East as the ancient god of fertility and crops. In Hebrew, the word Dagon was a common noun for grain. The ruler of Akkad, the Mesopotamia, chose him as the patron saint of their war conquest. He also appeared as the judge of the dead in an Assyrian poem and an underworld prison warden in one of the Babylonian texts. Huh. He was often mistakenly taken for a fish god due to the wrong interpretation of his name, as in Hebrew the word dag means fish. Oh, okay.
But soon perceiving that he was hopelessly conventional, I did not press my inquiries.
Hey, I see an Evil Dead reference. At least I think that's what it is. Truthfully told, I don't really know much of the H.P. Lovecraft books, but that's the Necronomicon. Necronomicon from the Evil Dead movie series. He has also befriended Lovecraft and published many of his works through his company, Arkham House. Although he greatly contributed to the popularization of the author's work after his death, he is surrounded by numerous controversies. One of his most questionable decisions involved introducing the good versus evil doctrine. Derleth was a devoted Catholic to the Cthulhu mythos, which contrasts with Lovecraft's view of the world and his approach to cosmic horror. As a result, the author's work are often misunderstood and it's misrepresented in today's culture. It is also worth noting that Lovecraft was never really interested in creating a mythology, and the term Cthulhu mythos was coined by Derleth after the author left the mortal plane. Huh. Okay. These days, the word scientist is a widely accepted term, but at the time Dagon was published, it was subjected to a wide debate. After the author used it in a story, critics pointed out that man of science was more appropriate term to employee. He admitted that if Dagon were to be reprinted, he would need to use the phrase they suggested. Huh.
is at night, especially when the moon is gibbous and waning, that I see the thing. I tried morphine, but the drug has given only transient surcease and has drawn me into its clutches as a hopeless slave. So now I am to end it all, having written a full account for the information or the contemptuous amusement of my fellow men.
Oh, I didn't see the...
Often, I ask myself if it could not all have been a pure phantasm, a mere freak of fever, as I lay sun-stricken and raving in the open boat after my escape from the German man of war. This I ask myself, but ever does there come before me a hideously vivid vision in reply. I cannot think of the deep sea without shuddering at the nameless things that may at this very moment be crawling and floundering on its slimy bed, worshipping their ancient stone idols and carving their own detestable likenesses on submarine obelisks of water-soaked granite. I dream of a day when they may rise above the billows to drag down into their reeking talons the remnants of puny, war-exhausted mankind. Of a day when the land shall sink and the dark ocean shall ascend amidst universal pandemonium.
We're under siege by Godzillas. Oh god.
The end is near. I hear a noise at the door, as of some immense slippery body lumbering against it. It shall not find me. God, that hand! The window! The window!
Oh. Okay. We hope you enjoyed the immersing yourself in our little pool of cosmic horror. We would appreciate it if you took a moment to rate Dagon and check out our other games and DLCs. Okay, dokie. That was... Whew. That was Dagon, ladies.
And scary stories have been accompanying men for centuries. They have many faces and forms, but what is their purpose? Why do we enjoy being afraid so much? During our therapy, I'll try to
Dr. Emerson's Nocturnes, hungry for more. Follow and wish list our upcoming collection of horror stories. Oh, there's a demo of this one available. I will probably actually go ahead and play that one next. Ooh, I actually like that. So, yeah, for the everyone, thanks for watching and joining me on this video. This one was definitely more so of me, of just listening and everything, and yeah. I hope you all enjoyed it, and see you in the next one. And be careful of the water, I guess. But yeah, also do all the like, subscribe, notification stuff, and hit the like button, you know, all that stuff. It helps out the channel. I would like to at least try to, by the end of this year, at least have over 60 subscribers, hoping for 100, but I greatly appreciate the help. It will definitely help my channel and everything. So yeah, see you guys in the next video. Bye bye.